Hey everybody, it is Lacey, the Director of Content Direction Agency, and this is your 15-minute content debrief, your weekly 15-minute, whatever we call it, lesson about actionable content marketing information you can use for your business. And today I have invited my good friend and teammate, Beth Hayden, on to talk to us today about webinars, because Beth is an expert in webinar sales pitches, and she's decided to start offering both our team and her own clients a package to help people do better with webinars, because so many people want to do them and think they're awesome and do them kind of poorly. Let's be real. And so Beth is here today to talk to us about whether or not webinars still work. Is there a bubble? Etc., etc. So if you are watching with us live or even in the replay, please give us a little like, a little thumbs up, a little happy GIF in the comments, because that helps other people see the video and get the goodies out of it. So Beth and I have known each other a long time. I don't even really know how to introduce you. You're like, when I met Beth, I was like, oh, I need to be friends with her because she's an expert and she knows smart people. And luckily, she agreed to be my friend. And now we've been working together for quite a while. So,
luckily.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, Beth, do webinars still work?
Yes. It is one of the biggest questions that I need to address with people, because there's a lot of webinars out there and they've been around for a really long time. So people are saying, I don't even know, does this still work? Is it too competitive? And people have a lot of concerns about it. Like, should I even put time and energy into it? Because let's be honest, it's a lot of time and energy. It's a very specific thing that you need to dedicate a fair amount of time to if it's going to work. So what I say is yes, but it is not the cash cow that perhaps it was 10 or 12 years ago when webinars started to get popular. It's sort of like you could put out practically anything and be able to get eyeballs on it because it was so novel and people were interested in, hey, I really want to check this out because I've never seen anything like this before. Or if they had seen videos like this, it wasn't necessarily in this capacity. So people were interested in lots and lots of different things, and they still are, but people are a little pickier. Like, that's kind of the theme of today, is that you need to be more careful and strategic about what you're putting out there, and in particular with your sales pitch, which we're going to be talking about. But the idea is basically yes, but you need to think carefully and be strategic. That's the gist of it. They still work, but you gotta work a little harder than you used to.
Yeah. So what does that look like, working harder? Because, I think I totally agree with this, because I've seen a lot of marketing tactics that were popular over the years become less effective because the novelty wore off, right? Like, everybody and their dog has seen the 3-video launch sequence now. And it's like the novelty of, oh, there's another video next week, has worn off.
Exactly.
And so it's like a question of, so what do we have to do to, what's that work harder look like?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is you really need to communicate what the value of your webinar is. So be really smart about making sure that the what's in it for me part is clear to your client, or your prospect. So on your registration page, it's not going to be, here's me and here's how awesome I am. It's going to be, I have this amazing thing to offer you, and here's why you want to sign up, and here's how to sign up. Your landing page is really, that's like your registration page for your webinar. That's its whole job. Is communicating, here's what's in it for you and why you should be interested in this. And it needs to be super concise, because those registration pages can't go on all day. They really need to be short and sweet. And so you got to be really strategic about thinking to yourself, what is the actual value? Because people don't necessarily want to do the work. If you make it sound like whatever process you have and what your solution is a ton of work and it's going to be a slog, people would be like, no, thank you. But they want the product, they want the solution on the other side of it. They want to sort of skip ahead and say, but what does it get me in the end? So that's the part that you have to get to, is the part that's really appealing to people, and be able to communicate that. So that's a big part, is being able to get to the value of it. And then you have to make sure that what you're offering on, I'm assuming that, most of the folks are doing promotional webinars. You can, of course, do them as paid webinars or just for content, but a lot of people are doing them as sales pitches. So at the end of it, you need to make sure that whatever you're offering is a really good fit for the people who participated in the call. Because if they came on wanting to talk about a particular thing and you try to pivot them during the call and sell them something completely differently, it's going to fall flat. People are going to say, well, that's not at all what I wanted. Go back to the other thing.
Right.
So that really, really doesn't work. And then I find that, and this is always scary to talk about, but I find that people have, because there is so much competition, they have very, very little tolerance for technical problems. Now, I'm the first to admit, because I've done tons of my own webinars and been on a lot of them too, that tech problems, things are going to happen. Something always goes wrong in a webinar, whether it's your dog or your dog barking or, something, not quite right with the audio, or you forgot to click over the right mic, or something always goes wrong. So you want to just put as many stopgaps as you can in place to try to avoid the technical problems, because the days of people being willing to sit through 10 minutes of you figuring out how to get the audio out to your audience, they're gone.
Yeah.
So if you don't get it working, within basically like right when you hit broadcast on your webinar, it's going to be practically impossible to be able to sell, because people's patience levels are at an all-time low with stuff like that. So do everything you can. And the biggest part of that is just doing really, really solid test runs, more than one, and making sure that you're really familiar with whatever your webinar platform is. You don't want to go into that cold and just try to figure that out on the call with live people watching. You don't want to do that.
Right.
So try to do whatever you can to minimize your tech problems along the way. And then what I tell people is people are not going to tolerate you lying to them. So don't... Yeah,
shocker!
I know, shocker. Like I think because the technology was new, you used to be able to get away with things like telling somebody that it's a live webinar when it's not, because I understand there's a lot of people doing evergreen webinars out there, and they're a great tool, but don't say it's live if it's not.
Right.
Don't say your replay is coming down in 24 hours when it's going to remain up for the next 3 months. You can still add urgency and you can do the things that you want to do without having to resort to manipulation, because people have been around the block a bunch of times. They can spot it a mile away. So don't lie. Thou shalt not lie to your webinar participants. And then the last one is you really, really need to make sure that your sales pitch is right on. So this is where a lot of people fall down on the job, and most of it is not their fault. It's just that it's a skill that you really, really have to know inside and out. So what typically happens, and I see this, I will admit, a lot with women webinar presenters, they do this amazing job on their content. They are subject matter experts, and they can come in and say, I'm great at what I do. I'm going to teach you all of these useful tips. The presentation itself is great. And then when they get to the sales pitch, they start stammering and apologizing and rushing, and the pitch of their voice goes way, way up. And I've done it myself too. It's intimidating to pivot into that sales pitch. So you need to do whatever you need to do to prep for that and make sure that you're not rushing through your sales pitch, and that you're not apologizing for offering a product or a service after you've done this incredible presentation that offers a lot of value. But that requires preparation and strategic thought ahead of time, so that you're not just trying to wing it. People who wing their sales presentations, it's ugly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that's where I see most people kind of failing with their webinars, is that they get people there, they get people to actually show up for the thing, and it's fantastic. And then when they go to do their sales pitch, it's like, wah, 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 and it's a shame, because everything you've done until that point is then, unfortunately, a little bit of wasted effort, because you're not making the sales, and that was your goal with the webinar to begin with.
Right.
So those are the main things. Yeah. But it's different than it used to be.
It's really different. And so I know that you are starting to offer like sales pitch writing as a service. Like, what kind of person are you looking, like who's a good candidate for that? Because I think a lot of people are freaked out by sales in general, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's two primary target audiences that are perfect for me, actually. The first one is somebody who's really new to webinars. They've got an established business. They've got a product that's already proven, an online course that they're relaunching, that kind of thing. And they're moving into webinars for marketing. So with those folks, I can help them look at the whole picture, figure out their whole webinar strategy. How are we going to use this as a tool and make sure that it actually converts? And then be able to write a sales pitch for them. So they deliver, the content of what they're great at. And then when it's time to pivot over into the sales pitch, then I can give them a script that they can get really comfortable with and work off of so that they're not, apologizing and stammering and rushing and skipping major parts of the sales pitch and things like that.
Yeah.
So I can definitely work with newbies in that way. But then people who've been running webinars for a while and who are not getting the results that they want, that's another perfect client for me. So if you have been in the webinar game for a little while, or even if you just ran one or two and you just look at that and say, I feel like there's a lot of potential here and I'm getting some sales, but I could be getting a lot more, then again, I can help you look at the whole picture. I can review a webinar that you've already done and give you feedback on that, and then use that as a way to improve all the different parts of your funnel, all the way from your registration page on your webinar all the way to the very final follow-up message. And that's including the sales pitch, because I have yet to see a webinar where I just think, yep, that sales pitch was perfect. That's absolutely great. Don't change a thing. There's always things that we can do to improve your conversion rate. So it's newbies and more experienced folks who've been running webinars for a while. I like folks to have an established audience coming in, though, because if you're doing webinars where nobody shows up live because you are starting a business from scratch, that's going to be tough, because we want to be able to test what we're doing, and you need an audience to be able to do that. So it doesn't have to be huge, but having an audience that you can speak to and being fairly sure you're going to be able to get people to show up for your event, that's an important piece.
That's really good. So just kind of to recap, what I'm hearing you say is, like, you have to choose your topic. Like, to make webinars work well, you have to choose the right topic, first of all. It has to be something that's going to give them a benefit, like an aha moment. I always talk about little yeses, right? I talk about this with blog content. Like, you want to get people a little yes, a little aha moment, so that they move on to the next stage. Like, if you get them a yes in a blog post, they're going to say, oh, yes, I want to sign up for your email. But if you get them a yes on a webinar, that's a bigger yes, and they're more likely to say, yes, I want to buy that thing, right? But it has to be the right matchup between the content and the offer.
Exactly.
And if there's a mismatch, you're not going to do very good.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, cool. That was the first one. And then the second one was tech problems. Like, ain't nobody got time for tech problems.
Yep.
And the third one was making sure that your pitch was really solid. Because again, this is all, what's fascinating to me about this is it's all about the prep work, right? Like, the way to make webinars work now is all about making sure the prep work is there. Like, what's fascinating is we can do this sort of off the cuff. Like, you and me were just talking. We said before this, live, we were like, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. And you're like, oh, I'll make a few notes. And it was fine. Because it's a different format. And we're not really trying to sell anything. Like, there's no formal, pitch. I mean, yes, if you want to buy Beth's services, great, PM me. But we're not, making a formal pitch here. But, when you go to all the trouble of a webinar, it's like an event. You really have to treat it like, I'm getting up on this stage and I'm going to talk to these people for an hour and make an offer.
Yes. That's exactly the right mindset to be in, is act as if you're actually going out on a stage. And you have the job to put butts in those seats. You want to have people to sell to, and that in and of itself takes a fair amount of prep to be able to get people so that they're actually there on the live event watching you. So take it seriously. I agree. It's definitely different than Facebook Lives. I love Facebook Lives. I think they're really cool for building trust. And they definitely have their place, but doing webinars like this for promotional purposes is kind of a whole different world.
Different
they both have their place. Yeah, it's a different ballgame, but they're both great for different reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. So our 15 minutes are almost up.
Oh my goodness, that went really fast.
So fast, right? I do want to say, if you're watching this live or in the replay and you have a question about webinars for Beth or for me, whatever, put it in the comments, and be sure to tag one of us so that we are sure we see it. Sometimes comments get lost in my inbox, and it's a kind of a mess in there. So be sure and tag me so that or Beth, so that we come back and answer the question. Also, if you liked this or if you got any use out of Beth's awesome tips, Please feel free to share it with your audience. I know, wild, crazy, but the more people who see it, the more people we can help. And also, I plugged a link to Beth's awesome blog post that inspired us to talk about this today into the comments. You can find her at bethhayden.com. Hi, Jan! And also, if you're interested in working with Beth, you can PM me, private message me here, Content Direction Agency, or you can talk to Beth directly. I mean, I'm not the gatekeeper here. It's all good. But I can hook you up if you would like to work with her, because she is a member of our Content Direction Agency family. And we love having her.
Lacey's amazing. Yes.
It's just a mutual admiration society around here. We're all big fans of each other's work. Thank you so much for coming on today and spending your lunch hour with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We'll be back. I'll be back next week. Probably just me, I think, next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. I'm here every Tuesday at noon Mountain, which is, I always have to do the math, 11 Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, everybody.